president of the county leadership forum.
Anytime at the old gas station before we stop in Martin on 34th Avenue and 20th Street. It is, I think, by far the coolest campaign office in the history of the But I think that speaks to who we are. So with that, I'll see you the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you for conceding 2 seconds. John, please.
Well, I want to talk about public policy and the quality of life. And I'm just going to talk about two areas. Mr. Dirks and I qualify for seniors here, so that's one that we have to look at, because right now we have a failed policy for seniors. Bob Rose announced today that they would redirect $200 million in current spending to the following areas: $50 million to reopen closed transition and long-term care beds, another $50 million to expand home care funding, and another $100 million to the front line to cut the wait time for surgeries and other procedures. The fact is that, because of my age, I've seen my in-laws and my parents have to try to find a place to stay when they start to suffer. And that just has to end. So Rose is taking an initiative in that particular area today. By doing so, we're going to free up some beds in the hospitals and find proper accommodation for our senior citizens. Dealing with I want to talk about anti-bullying. We need to change, Mr. Minister, to the Education Act here. My daughter suffered for bullying. It's traumatized her. What we need is legislation now. Thank you. Okay, that's it.
I was really encouraged to hear the priorities and the values of my opponents. I agree, I think, with most of what they said. Environment, trust, respect, transparency, bullying. We had a child who was bullied, and I think we still saw the consequences of that too. I think that these things are all very important, and there are reasons why I'm running. When I talk to people at the doors, these are the things, the 3 key things that keep coming up and that I want to focus on. We already talked about one, flood mitigation, so I'm going to talk about 3 other key ones that come up. This is a riding that has got parents and children all over the place. I meet them at the doors all the time. Guess what the number 1 thing is that they want to talk about? Education and schools. And some of my opponents make light of announcements to build schools. But I can tell you that the school trustees and school board chairs that I talked to today, when we told them about the 50 new schools and the 25 modernizations that are going to take place, about the 55 that presently are taking place, and the 70 modernizations that are taking place, and Bonus High School is a really good example. Many of these are already taking place. And back in 2012, when there were announcements for schools, 35 new schools, 31 of those have already been built, and 4 of them are just in the final stages of being opened. It's really important that we focus on public education. That's a top priority of mine. We need to make sure that we have the very highest quality of teachers to sustain our world-class education system, that we are supporting them, that we are dealing with the resources they need for the inclusive classrooms, which they are challenged with these days, and I understand that, having been a teacher myself. The second priority that people talk about is healthcare, and we all get that. I get that. My parents and my wife's parents, they're both gone now. And I know the importance of good care. We actually were blessed, in my case, to receive really good care from both of my parents. And I desperately want that for every senior citizen as they age. That was not the case with my wife. And we saw some really difficult and horrendous things happen which just ripped our hearts out and troubled us deeply. I don't want to see that happen. I think the number one thing that we need to do in healthcare, there's many things, but my number one priority, and I said it in my opening remarks, is to advocate for long-term care beds. We need a massive Marshall Plan bill for long-term care beds in this province, in the same way we just announced a massive bill for new schools. Leadership does that. Leadership doesn't wait. Leadership doesn't talk about it. Leadership takes action. And we need to do that. The third priority, I won't spend much time on this one.
We're done.
I'll get to it.
In conclusion.
Well, folks, we're blessed with some excellent candidates and excellent answers. Now we're going to go from our three super 3-minute questions to all your questions. We're going to ask you to contain your answers to a minute. By the way, I was a member of City Council a long time ago. I remember when you could ask as many questions as you wanted in City Council, but you had to debate in 5 minutes. And then I came in MLA. You could ask as many questions as you wanted, but you could debate for 30 minutes. You know what I learned? You can say it in 5 minutes. Instead of now, we get to say it in 1 minute. So, well, our panel is going to rotate through the questions. We're going to get to as many as we can. Here we go.
There's some tremendous questions here, but they're quite specific. So this is getting to the nub of it, and I think it starts with Susan. What's to be done about the backlog of long-term care patients currently in hospital settings? We've heard a couple of comments, but this is quite specific. Thank you.
This is an issue that the Liberals have been looking at and working on for some time, and our policy is very clear, and we've had it certainly well before the PCs had it. And that is that we need to look at building more home care and continuing care facilities. They cost significantly less than an acute care bed, and that means you could move the patients who are in the long-term, or in the people who are sitting in the acute care beds who are
For, just giving you the answer.
This next question is starting with Gord. What would be your strategy to improve access to market for Alberta resources?
That's a challenging question. Clearly, that's one that's on the Premier's mind. And I think market access was the first thing that he talked about at the very beginning of his leadership race and his premiership. We all know that our province is profoundly dependent on market access for our resources. And if we're not going to secure that, then we're not going to be able to do any of the things that we've talked about tonight. We won't be able to build schools. We won't be able to build long-term care beds like we would like to. We won't be able to invest in healthcare. We need to have a robust, healthy energy sector, and that means market access. So that means a few things in terms of how that comes about. And our Premier has talked about working in cooperation with the federal government, working in cooperation with the Aboriginal community, and that's one of his great strengths. He understands the Aboriginal community. He was in charge of that file in the federal government. He's many contacts in that area, and his negotiating skills with the Aboriginal community are well known through the land claims that he was responsible for negotiating over a number of years. So market access is going to require working effectively with the federal government, with the Aboriginal community. It's also going to require working effectively with overseas international agencies and government. And we need a leader for our province who understands that and who can effectively operate in that domain. And that's one of the reasons why when the Premier Francis came to me and asked me if I would join the team and help redo government, I felt confident in saying yes, because I believe he's the person to lead our province, to provide that kind of
That bringing us the time, and we're counting on all the candidates respecting the agreement that we had with the MCs. Next candidate, please.
I'm assuming that's me. So Just thank everyone actually for that guideline there, actually. That's really helpful. All of our time is extremely valuable, and we need to all respect each other's time and resources. On the issue of access to market resources, I think this is sort of pointing at one of the main issues that we're facing, and that is pipelines. It's getting our resources from Alberta down to Montana so that the bitumen can be refined. Well, that's the PC plan. Our plan is to refine our bitumen at home. That's going to create jobs, it's going to keep the money here, and it's going to ensure that we can actually experience that Alberta advantage between lower gas prices at the pump and at the end of the day, more cash in your jeans.
So coming from the energy sector, this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I think the answer lies in a number of different places. The first place is that there is a level of unease and distrust on the part of the public when it comes to the regulators who are actually making these decisions. They feel that the regulators are too closely aligned with the government, who's too closely aligned with industry. So we need to actually bring back into the legislation the right to come forward and defend the public interest. Because the things that we're seeing developed actually are things that impact all of us. Secondly, I do agree with my friend over here that we need to do more upgrading here in the province, because that will not only bring added value to us, but it will also take away some of the concern people have about shipping raw bitumen over the waters or down to the U.S. And thirdly, I think what we need to do is actually have decent environmental regulations and decent oversight. Instead of just talking about it, but we actually need to deliver that. You'll remember that the Auditor General did a report, and he said that the oil sands monitoring program was not world class, it was incompetent, it was inaccurate, it was wrong. That breaks trust. Let's just do it right.
So when we're losing $3 billion a year in revenue from not getting market access, obviously it's a huge issue for the province of Alberta. Jim Prentice can't just simply wave his magic wand and make pipelines appear. It doesn't happen that way. And I think we do need to ask ourselves, why are we here? I talked earlier about Alberta's environmental record. Now, I have to think that Alberta in many ways gets a bad rap, but this is not a problem that simple marketing alone is going to solve. I think we need to not only do the right thing, we need to be seen to do the right thing. It's that classic ethical test. And I think that is the challenge that Alberta faces. I think if we set out to solve some of those environmental challenges, we can do that here in Alberta. We have the people, we have the brain power, we have the innovation to be able to do those things. In terms of the value add question, I'd like to see Alberta get the maximum return on the energy assets that we all own here as citizens. Whether that's upgrading or whether that's shipping raw bitumen, my worry is we don't have a job shortage in Alberta, we have a skilled labor shortage. If we artificially incent upgrading, I think there's a risk that we end up actually making it worse and in fact return less money to taxpayers than if we pursue a pipeline strategy.
Okay, we're going to talk about pipelines. The production level, we have sufficient capacity right now just using rails because we're being blocked right now. So we got enough capacity, the production coming online for 3 more years. In 3 more years, we're going to have a problem. We have to have some pipelines. There are 3 pipelines. We've got Northern Gateway, we've got XL Keystone, and we have